Welcome to the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges Education Institute's annual policy forum. I'm Wendy Brill-Weinkoop. I'm the president of FACC. This is an annual forum brought to you by the FACC-EI, or Education Institute's Policy Committee, which serves as our think tank for the Institute and for the FACC-EI Board of Directors. FACC is faculty-driven and professionally managed. It's a board of seasoned faculty professionals its board of seasoned faculty professionals is dedicated to working cooperatively with your unions and academic senates to ensure that faculty voices are heard in the halls of government across the state. FACC conducts its annual policy forum to review the day's major issues and motivate faculty to organize and advocate. This year's conversation will center on bringing community back to community colleges. The forum will include a panel featuring faculty, students, and elected leaders who will share perspectives on strengthening the college's missions and support the multifaceted needs of local communities statewide. After the panel, attendees are invited to engage in solution-oriented dialogue on their vision for community colleges serving diverse populations through reliable, equitable funding and supportive policies. This conversation will focus on restoring the original purpose of the community colleges, delivering an essential public good. I would like to give a special thanks to everyone serving on the PAC Policy Committee. The forum would not be possible without your dedication and hard work. Our FACC board members are in the audience, and I'd like to thank them for their work and support for our profession. In addition, please welcome our interim executive director, Emily Harrelson. We're fortunate to have her join our FACC staff. And thank you, of course, to all our hardworking staff working behind the scenes to make sure this event is running smoothly. I'd like to now hand off to Kay Frindell-Tusher, our FACC Policy Committee Chair. Take it away, Kay.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kay Frindell-Tusher, and I am the chair of the FACC Policy Committee. I am a chemistry professor at Santa Rosa Junior College also. And I'm going to present a little bit of background and historical context that will frame our conversations, frame the conversations of the panel, and also frame the conversations that we're going to have in the breakout rooms a little later on. And this timeline was developed by the FACC Policy Committee, and it's by no means exhaustive, but it just brings up some important events that have happened over the years that'll kind of give us a place to start having this conversation. So let me quickly share my screen, and I hope everyone can see what I'm about to present. And now I'm going to go to the right place. Okay, here we go. So again, welcome to our policy forum and our discussion on bringing community back to community college. Okay, so this is not the beginning, but this is where we are going to begin. Higher education, the history of higher education in California goes back to the mid-1800s, but the first junior colleges began instructing in the early part of the 20th century. And you can see them listed there: Fresno, Santa Barbara, Bakersfield, Fullerton, and San Diego all started. The college where I work, Santa Rosa, started in 1918, so not that far behind. So the next significant event in our timeline was the California Master Plan for Higher Education, something that is often referred back to because it was so important in establishing how particularly our community colleges were meant to serve their communities. But it actually, via the Donahoe Act, set up our 3 systems of higher education in California and established the missions of each of those groups. And a little later on, I will show you the mission that was originally developed and how it has been somewhat altered. So that was 1960. In 1967, we saw the opening of the California Community College Chancellor's Office, which oversees our system to this day. So that's the beginning. And then this is not, like I said, an exhaustive list of legal decisions and legislation. That I don't think we could ever have enough time for an exhaustive list. But these are some of the things that started shaping how our community college system was funded, and which of course we all know has changed recently, and some of the other important decisions that affect us. So in 1971, the Supreme Court determined that using property taxes is discriminatory against districts that, don't have a high property taxes, which makes sense, and which we still find affecting us today in forms of like basic aid districts and other things like that. So that was 1971. And then it looks like there was a bit of a backlash, 1973. In San Antonio versus Rodriguez, the Supreme Court ruled the unequal funding of school districts is not unconstitutional because education is not a fundamental right under the US Constitution. And then skipping ahead to 1978, you can see that the funding was shifted to Sacramento, which did a bit of equalizing, but also Prop 13, as we all know, had all kinds of drastic effects on funding for lots of things in California. In 1975, not insignificant, since I am a union leader in particular, the ROD Act allowed collective bargaining for California teachers. So that was the 70s. Moving ahead to pivotal legislation of the 1980s, some more stuff with funding. You see Prop 98 is actually, if anyone's been paying attention to the budget that is proposed for next year, we are being somewhat rescued by this Prop 98 funding, even though California is finding itself in a dire budget situation. So Prop 98 set minimum thresholds for funding for K-12 and for the community college system in California. But probably the most important piece of legislation affecting community colleges was AB 1725. So I think a lot of people here probably know a lot, probably more than I do, about AB 1725. But that was when our mission was sort of solidified, and when community colleges were transferred from a K-12 type of model to higher education. And that is where shared governance was established. And that is where the local academic senates were given the powers that they have to advise the boards of trustees and other things that they retain currently. Okay, so that was the 1980s. And here's when, I skipped the 90s. A lot of things did happen in the 90s, including effects on affirmative action and other things, not being able to teach in languages other than English. But again, we couldn't fit it all in our presentation. But an important moment in the early 2000s, which many of us may have been teaching when this happened, was the Basic Skills Initiative. And this initiative came out of the ASCCC, the Statewide Academic Senate, to be able to ensure student success in math and English. And made financial investments in curriculum and student support, and had sort of set a course for how we were going to make sure that our students were able to learn those skills and transfer. And then what I see as sort of a shift away from faculty-led grassroots decisions on how to implement the teaching and learning of our students, was the California Acceleration Project. Something changed between 2006 and 2010. This is the first significant initiative that started talking about increasing degree completion and use the word throughput in reference to our students getting out of our system as quickly as possible, reducing units, reducing time to degree. And many of us might have seen, presented by our own local institutional research departments, the argument that a sequential series of basic skills classes presented too many exit points, and that was just a way that we were losing students, instead of viewing it as each one of those classes might help them get to be successful in the following class. They focused on how many students never made it to the next class and argued that it couldn't be done that way anymore. And so the California Acceleration Project started to dismantle that idea of the sequential basic skills classes. And so from there began a different kind of shift that led from these initiatives coming out of the legislature instead of coming out of the ASCCC and coming out of the faculty. And not only that, but there was so much more of that stuff. So I'm going to show you a slide that has a lot of things on it. And while we don't have time to go through everything that's on there, we can talk about the basic idea and some of the things that happen. And again, not exhaustive. I'm sure there's things that we did not include. But this is the policy reform that has come top down from Sacramento to the system to really try and shift the mission, the purpose, how we do things at our colleges. And I really feel, I don't know if this is on here, but the Student Success Act was a big one. And then it was just like a waterfall after that. So it starts in 2010 with the idea that all of a sudden transfer was the most important thing that our community college does. And in a minute, I'll show you the mission statement. And it's, of course, that's part of our mission, but it was never our entire mission. But all of a sudden, there's a hyper focus on the transfer pathway. And that's when they started bringing in these associate degrees for transfer and trying to make it everything faster and trying to increase what they called throughput. And I forgot to mention this, but I believe there's going to be resources that you might be interested in that Wendy and Lydia and others might be dropping into the chat. So if you look in there to see other additional reading you might want to do, you'll probably find something of interest. So we start with ADTs and transfer pathway reforms in 2010. And then, there's the Student Success Act, 2012. And then the Vision for Success comes out in 2017. And then the Students Centered Funding Formula in 2018. And the whole entire arc of this is to come down to the change in our mission, which happened in 2022. So they wanted to hyper focus on the transfer pathway. And then ultimately what they ended up with was the abolishment of standalone classes that were not transfer level that had originally been meant to prepare our students to be able to succeed and learn the skills they needed to transfer or to take advantage of the mission of the community colleges in a different format. And again, these reforms and these legislation pieces did not come out of the faculty. They did not come out of the statewide academic senate. They were backed by what we can lovingly call special interests, and that had a different idea of why the community colleges needed to do what they needed to do. So I know that's a lot. There's no way to read it all or go through it, but you can have access to this slide later on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you again, this is all to frame our context of our panel discussion that we're going to have, and also of our breakout rooms that we're going to do a little later. I'll show you the mission of the California Community Colleges that was established in the Donahoe Act in 1960. So this is from Ed Code section, Ed Code section 66010.4. And the California Community Colleges originally had 4 parts to the mission, but both academic and vocational instruction. And this is the mission as it is now. It talks about the provision of instruction and additional learning supports to close learning gaps for those who need it. Instruction in English as a second language, adult non-credit instruction, and support services that help students succeed at the post-secondary level. The provision of adult non-credit education in areas defined as being in the state's interest. The provision of community service courses. The provision of student support services. And you can also see that the primary mission of the colleges is to advance California's economic growth and global competitiveness through education training services that can contribute to workforce improvement. And the California community colleges may conduct institutional research. I feel that that's where that original flowchart from the California Acceleration Project that talked about all the exit points for the basic skills courses came directly out of our institutional research offices. And the provision of instruction to support learning gaps shall be provided in the form of concurrent support. So that's the important thing about this is our mission now. And I will show you what changed. The first part of those 4 pieces in the beginning of the mission statement started with the provision of remedial instruction for those in need of it. And it was changed to the provision of instruction and additional learning support to close learning gaps and concurrent support. So that number 5 was added. Now, I think it's important that everyone knows how it was added, because it wasn't done during the normal legislative process that we think of in terms of bills. So changes were made to this mission statement in the 2022 budget trailer bill language. And budget trailer bill language is not developed, like I said, in the normal legislative process. It's developed after the fact by the governor and a few other important positions in the legislature. And then it is generally signed off on with a lot of other things. And so it sort of got put in, for lack of a better way of saying it, at the last minute, and effectively has banned the teaching of remedial instruction and removed it from the California Community Colleges mission. And it does state that it's allowable to offer if you can prove that it's necessary, but as of now, I don't know that anyone has had a very easy time with that. So that is what I wanted to present, and we do have a couple of minutes remaining, so I will see if I can stop sharing my screen perhaps and see if anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to add.
Can I add something to hey, thank you for that, Kay. It was great. It's not easy information to present if you haven't presented a million times, which I have. So one of the things I wanted to add is that it's not that the transfer pathway is bad. We love the transfer pathway. We'd love our students to transfer, but it's not the only thing that we're tasked with. We're tasked with all these other ways that we want to prepare our students to be successful based on their goals. And so when we are under-resourced, dramatically under-resourced, we get about $7,500 per full-time equivalent student, right? So if we have 2 students taking half a load, then we get $7,500 to split between the 2 students, where the K-12 is in the 11,000 range per student. The CSUs, I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but it's upwards of 20,000, and then the UCs are upwards of 35,000 plus their tuition. So we're the most diverse system of higher ed in California. We are also the biggest system of higher education in the world. And we are the least funded system of education, period, not just higher education, but education in the state of California when it comes to public money. So we do an amazing job. We do a lot, and we have all these pieces of our mission because people come to us as immigrants wanting to learn government. They want to learn about English. There's all sorts of things they want to learn about so that they can move on and transfer. We have people who come back after a higher ed degree and want to receive more education so that they can do something different or upskill. And we have people who come to us for just trades education. So all of these things are great things. We do all of these things, and we continue to want to do all of these things. But when you're under-resourced and then policy decisions are hyper-focusing us on one specific area, then the other areas atrophy, or we struggle to be able to meet the mission. So anyway, I just wanted to add that because I want to make sure that everybody understands we're not against transfer. Absolutely not. We love that. But we want to make sure that we can also help our students who are coming to us that have other goals other than transfer. So I'll hand it back to you, Kay, if you want to take a couple questions. We have about 5 minutes.
Sure. Thank you so much for adding that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I see a question from Andrew Waltzer.
Hi, my question has to do with how this emphasis on transfer has undermined other parts of our mission other than the basic skills. It's a different way of talking about the same thing that Wendy just talked about. But yeah, my question is, once again, how do you feel that our mission is atrophying in other ways besides the fact that we've undermined the basic skills?
Well, I can think of a specific example relevant to my college and where I work, which is there's an awful lot of math that can be learned that would never rise to the level of transfer that is needed for areas in career education. And I've been concerned that there aren't classes for the welders who need some math, but they don't need a transfer level math course. And because of the fact that you can't offer anything, it sort of leads to, or at least our college maybe hasn't figured out a way to be within compliance with AB 1705 and do it. So it concerns me that our career ed will suffer. And also the focus on transfer, I also feel puts programs in danger that are for lifelong learning, the arts, even though some of those are transfer topics, sometimes they get put by the wayside with all the focus on these math and English. I see one question in the chat, and then I see two hands. The question that from the audience, do you know if there's a movement to shift remedial education to another system like adult ed, for example? The only thing I can add to try to answer that question is that I don't know about every district, but my district, I think, has attempted, or the faculty have attempted to offer non-credit remedial classes in math in English, and we're told that was a violation of AB 1705. So there may be a movement to shift it, but I don't know what the status is on whether that's going to be feasible or not under the current implementation guidance of AB 1705. And then I see a question from Ian and a question from Syrian.
I think we only have time for one more question.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Ian had his hand up first.
Hi there. I just want to throw in a provocative viewpoint on your slide. It showed beautifully the transfer of initiative away from the faculty and towards special interests. But a more provocative way of looking at it is many Californians are furious about the way the Florida legislature is meddling in curriculum on social issues. But I would contend what your chart shows is that the California legislature is meddling every bit as much, especially in process. They've taken over curriculum.
I see that parallel as well. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Okay, well, it is 9:29, so I am going to hand this back to Wendy, FACC President Wendy Brill-Weinkoop, who is going to introduce our panel and is going to also be the moderator of the panel. Before I do that, I also wanted to say a thank you to everybody on the policy committee that has helped put together this policy forum. And I can't see everyone that's here but I will mention that I see Andrew Walter, Richard Mahon, Ian Walton are all here, and they'll all be helping with the breakout rooms that we'll be doing later on. So thank you to the policy committee for putting this together. Okay, thanks, Wendy.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move on to our panel. We're tight on time because we have some extraordinary individuals that we've asked to join us, and we want to respect their time because they're incredibly busy individuals. And so what we're going to do is talk to our panel, and then after that, we'll take a short break, and then we're going to have time for all the participants and our panelists are welcome to stay if they have time but our participants of the policy forum are going to have time to talk and ask questions and have discussions. So we want to make sure that we stay on time. So our panel today, I would like to welcome Liz Ortega. She is Assembly member from District 20 and a champion for both labor and education. We are very blessed to have her in the legislature. She was on Assembly Higher Ed Committee last year, and because of leadership changes, she has been moved to other committees, but she has done some amazing stuff for education and higher ed, and it is definitely in her heart. I've known that because I've had some amazing conversations with her about higher education. And next we have Patrick Ahrens. He is the president of the Board of Trustees of Foothill-De Anza Community College District. I've known Patrick for a long time. We love to take selfies together. So Patrick, I'm sure he'll talk about this, but is not only a community college graduate, but then has served on their board and also works in Assemblymember Evan Lowe's office. So he's got amazing historic wealth of knowledge about the community colleges, both from his personal experience and then also from working in the legislature. And then we have Madison Harris. Excuse me, I have a little allergy going on today. She is from Region 8, Legislative Affairs Directors for the Student Senate of the California Community Colleges, or easier to say, SSCCC. Our student senators are unbelievable. They are all going to school. They're preparing to transfer. They are traveling all over the state representing the students. I have never seen such hardworking students in my life. They make me look like a lazy person now, but definitely a super lazy person when I was a student. But we are incredibly fortunate to have a powerful student senate who has a voice and is active in legislative affairs. It is so important for our students to be able to have their voice be heard at the Capitol. Thank you, Madison, for giving up your free time and being here today with us. And then last we have, not last, definitely not least, but James McKeever. He is the president of AFT 1521, which is the Los Angeles Community College District Faculty Guild. It's the largest community college district in the state. And I want to say, and he'll probably correct me later, I want to say it's at least 5,000 faculty, something like that. It's a huge faculty guild. And he is also a champion of labor. He's a champion of the community colleges. And I am also very blessed to know him. So I want to thank all of you for being here today and being on our panel. I am going to go through a series of questions and try and be the timekeeper at the same time. Hopefully I won't get too lost and we can respect your time. But as we go through the questions, some are directed to all of you, and then some are directed just to key individuals. And when I ask the question of a key individual, I'll ask some of you if you'd like to follow up or add, given how much time we have, if we can do that. So thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to start with, please tell us a little bit about your background and your current role, and I'll start in the order that I introduced you. So we'll start with Assemblymember Liz Ortega.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, great. Yeah, I'm Assemblymember Liz Ortega. I represent Assembly District 20, which is located in the East Bay. I have everything in between San Leandro and Union City, and represent 500,000 voters. I am currently, as was mentioned, I was on the Higher Ed Committee, but with the leadership change, our new speaker recognized my background, which is over 20 years in labor as a labor organizer and former head of the Alameda County Labor Council. And so now I'm the new chair of Labor and Employment. And so very excited to be here today. You know, as was mentioned by Wendy, higher education is very close to my heart. I am a community college alumni. I actually went to all of the community colleges at one point or another here in Alameda County, and I'm very grateful for that experience. Had it not been for the community colleges in my area, I would not be here today as your assembly member. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I'll go with Patrick.
Hi, Wendy, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this panel. I'm Patrick Ahrens. I'm born and raised here in Silicon Valley. I'm the first in my family to go to college. Both of my parents never graduated high school, and found myself going to Anza Community College, which completely changed my life and led me on a pathway to transfer to UCLA and work for then Congressmember Karen Bass and Janice Hahn, and worked in DC for 3 years on the Hill. And after 3 snowstorms and humid summers, I decided to run back to California and been working in the legislature for the past decade for Assemblymember Paul Fong and then Assemblymember Evan Lowe, and got elected to the Community College Board for the same community college board that I graduated from at Foothill-De Anza in 2018, and just finished my master's degree at San Jose State in public administration, and have been working hard to provide better access and affordability in our community college system. And I'm excited to hear from the rest of the panelists today.
Thank you, Patrick. Madison.
Hello, happy to be here. So a little bit about myself. I'm a 3rd-year student at Orange Coast College. I'm a chemistry major, and I plan to get into the field of patent law. I hope to transfer to either UC Berkeley or UC Davis. Eventually go to law school in New York, like Columbia or NYU. I'm a big lover of all things STEM and student advocacy. I hold a couple roles, but I want to highlight 2 of them, which would be my student body president position on my campus and serving as a legislative affairs director for Region 8. I really love how the 2 roles complement each other. As a legislative affairs director, I either advocate for or express concern for certain pieces of legislation that pertains to the SSCCC's legislative priorities, which is like basic needs, housing, transportation, health, and wellness. And the 2 positions complement each other because they help inform my position as student body president, because the legislation I track directly affects the students I serve back on my campus. So I get to go out and talk to students, assess their needs, and with their input and with SSCCC's priorities as like guidelines, it helps me make a better, more informed decision as to what pieces of legislation I need to track. Above all, I'm really big and empowering for the student voice. I serve on the statewide Black Advisory Panel, as SSCCC has allowed me to do that, where I advocate for the student experience, the Black student experience, with the hopes of increasing enrollment in our African American populations and just helping Black student success. And that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. That's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Stellar student. You made me look like I slept through my whole degree. I am so impressed with you guys. Okay, and James, please share with us.
Sure. James McKeever and president AFT 1521 Faculty Guild. I come from a different type of background. Both my parents were, we were low income. My mother graduated high school, my father didn't. My father and my brothers and sisters got involved in drug dealing. I didn't, but I was also doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing as well until I was 13 years old, and someone made an intervention in my life that made a difference. Bill Dusenberry at a local park, I always have to cite him and thank him for that, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. But I had, at 18 years old, I was still in high school, and I had a son, and I was going to Grant High School, and across the street was Valley College, and I went to Valley College when I graduated. I became a single father. My son's mom wasn't around, and it was just me and him, and it took me 9 years to get through community college. I moved out on my 18th birthday because my family was also very violent, and I didn't want my son around that. So yeah, I struggled for those 9 years as I tried to get through community college. Did a variety of different careers in between, took some time off between college, went back to CSU when I decided to, that I needed something different. And I went to Cal State LA, got my bachelor's there, got an opportunity to go to USC and get my PhD. And then in sociology, and then the rest is history. So if it wasn't for community college and what it did for me, I also couldn't be here right now. So I really do appreciate that. I've always given back to the communities that helped me. I still volunteer in the local parks like I have since I was 13 years old. And that's why I wanted to teach community college.
Fantastic. Well, I think those are 4 amazing stories of how community colleges have transformed lives or in the process of transforming lives with Madison. She's still in community college. And we're here for everyone at every age. And so often people come back to us even after they've moved on to something else. So thank you for sharing your stories and your backgrounds and letting our audience know a little bit about who you are. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what is the role of community colleges and how should the community colleges serve our communities? And I will start with Madison this time.
I think the role of community colleges is to provide, as you just said, affordable and accessible education to all walks of life, no matter your background, age, education level. Community college is really for anyone and everyone trying to gain access to higher level education. I think community college is the pedestal that helps people get into the career they want or to live a certain lifestyle that they want. It provides a plethora of different degrees for the community's different goals, and they serve their communities just by doing that, providing different areas of education, whether that's an ADT, you want to transfer to a 4-year, if it's vocational training, if it's getting a certificate, if it's a certain trade like welding. The possibilities are really endless, and they serve the community by providing a variety of career choices. I really think that it starts with community college.
Thank you so much. James.
So, I mean, it's to educate, not just credential. I think that a lot of times we forget that education part. We say the word education, but it's actually to give knowledge to people and so on, not just help them get degrees so that they can transfer, which is really important. It's also, as Madison said, to provide upward mobility. If you go to the California Community College website, you're going to see some statistics. For every dollar a student spends on their community college education, they'll gain $5 in higher earnings in the future. And it also points out that graduates with associate degrees from California community colleges will see earnings of over $11,000 higher than those with high school diplomas. It also gives hope and opportunity to impoverished communities. This is extremely important. I want to say that my wife is from Sacramento, and when I went out there, and she lived in a low-income neighborhood called Fruit Ridge, right, which is predominantly Latino and Vietnamese. And their low-income neighborhoods look different than ours because people live in houses there because it's cheaper to live, and it's only one family living in the house. So I didn't believe that this was what poverty looked like. But one day when I was standing at a Rite Aid, I felt what poverty felt like. I felt the hopelessness of I was hearing some people talk where over there's 3 community colleges and then there's Sac State. So if you can't get into Sac State, your college career is done. Here in Los Angeles, we have countless numbers of community colleges, CSUs, liberal arts colleges, UCs. So there's hope in our communities, and hope cannot be underestimated. But also there's opportunity. 51% of CSU and 20% of UC students come through the community colleges. 70% of our students are people of color. Around 2/3 of African American or Black students who attend post-secondary education in California start in community college. And 78% of Latinx students enroll in community college to seek a higher degree themselves. So in summary, we are the engine of the 5th largest economy in the world because we give this type of opportunity. We help our students achieve their dreams, and we teach them to dream broader. And we also transform families and communities.
Thank you. We reach every corner of California, definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And for anybody in the audience who doesn't know, we have 116 community colleges. 115 of them are physical colleges, from border to border, edge to edge. Fantastic. Assemblymember Ortega.
I don't know how I can add more to what already has been said. I mean, these panelists are amazing. Madison, yes, you are a rising star, and so lucky to be here with you today, as well as James. I see community colleges as that great equalizer. Education is something that could never be taken away, whether it's for developing our new workforce or for the transferring, or for, just getting back into school and learning one way or another. It's something that can never be taken from you. And that's why I feel community colleges are one of the pillars in our communities, especially when it comes to minority communities who come from under resourced schools. I grew up in Oakland, and a lot of my schooling, was very limited because we were so underfunded. And at a time, I remember even having a counselor who said to me, you're not going to go to college. What are you doing? Just get straight to work. And so the community colleges not only gave me the opportunity, but gave me hope for one day having, being part of a community that I really cared and give back. And that's what I see when it comes to community colleges as a great equalizer.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Patrick.
Thank you. I really like what Dr. McKeever talked about being the engine of the fifth largest economy. I think that really sums it up quite nicely. I really see, of course, access and affordability, as was mentioned. Workforce is sort of the sleeper at times, doesn't get, I don't think, the fair recognition that it deserves about how much vocational and training that our community colleges offer. We could be doing so much more by investing in that and being supportive of connecting broader with our local industries and showing our students that there are so many more pathways than just the sort of dominant transfer pathways. I really think that, traditionally the lifelong learning and community engagement aspect has been there for the community colleges as well. I do worry, though, that over the years, with the elimination of repeatability and other sort of fiscal challenges that we've encountered, has taken away from the community colleges being that hub of lifelong learning and going to our community colleges to grow and learn at all ages. And I see that just not being able to be offered for a lot of financial reasons, and would love to see that reemerge in our community college system, because I think, we really need to, as was mentioned in the panel, bring back the community and community college. And that is where I think we can have the most opportunity to regrow.
I totally agree. We definitely need to be funded in a way that we can support all Californians for all of their goals and dreams. So speaking of success, we're going to start with Madison on this question, and we're asking it directly to her. And then if anybody would like to respond to her definition, we have time for it. So Madison, how do you define success for California community colleges? For California community college students, sorry.
No, you're okay. So I would define success for community college students by judging how community college has lent itself into the career path you want, whether that's through, like I said earlier, vocational training or trade or certificate. You can go to a very specific career path, or that's whether through an ADT, you transfer to your dream university and go to law school, med school, go get a PhD. It's judging how community college has made it possible for you to achieve your dreams. But this is multifaceted. It's not just about the degree and the career that you go into. It's definitely about the process as well. It's knowing that community college has helped shape and mold you into the person that you've always wanted to be. That may be through study abroad activities, and community colleges have great study abroad activities, conferences, leadership conferences, or like I went to the Umoja conference. That was a great experience. Joining a club or organization that fits your niche interests, and then you can then develop it and foster it from there. Providing network opportunities. It's making sure that community college has exposed you to enough new experiences where you've been able to determine what you like and what you don't like, so you can strengthen your identity. Community college should be a transformative experience. And if it's one, I think it's fair enough to say that your time at community college has been more than successful. Community college has been such a transformative experience for myself. I would not be the person I am today if it was not for community college. I was supposed to go to a 4-year, and I got there for 3 days and I hated it. Drove back and signed up for OCC on the drive back, and it's been one of the greatest decisions I've ever made. I've been able to go to the Capitol and talk to legislators, and it's just been such a great experience. It sparked my interest for student advocacy, and now I get to go to my dream 4-year. I've been able to boost my GPA and achieve the things that I want to achieve, and I'm like forever grateful for community college, and it's been such a great experience. So, yeah.
Wow, wonderful. What I heard is that this transformative experience is more than the credential you receive. So what I'd like to ask of our other panelists as a follow-up, how do we measure that amazing transformative experience that Madison shared? How do we measure that when we're trying to in policy matters, figure out things like accountability and how the community colleges are doing? Anybody want to? James, go ahead.
Well, I think there's multiple ways to measure it. I think one of the ways that we measure it is we see the transformations it makes in the communities themselves. I mean, when it changes families' outlook. So for instance, instead of my family now being low income, we are now middle class. So my students have different opportunities than than they did before. When it provides the type of services that students need in order to have lifelong learning, but different health outcomes. 3 of my brothers all passed away before the age of 50 years old. One of my brothers passed away before the age of 40, and one of my sisters passed away before the age of 40. And if they had access to things like things about health and meditation and yoga and stress relief, those type of things could have been really helpful for them. Nutrition, a variety of different things. That's why AB 928 was something that we had to fight against too, because it kept that repeatability that Patrick was talking about from happening for kinesiology courses that were really important. When we provide those type of services, we also see transformation for our students too, which then becomes transformation for our communities. And when we see more of our students successfully graduate from 4-year universities and maybe move on to master's and PhD programs, that's another way we can measure it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Important things to measure besides the credential. The family, right? Not just the individual, but the family's upward mobility. Also health comes, not again, just for the individual, but for the family. And then also what services we provide, a lot of services beyond just education. Assemblymember Ortega or Patrick, would you like to add to how we might approach measuring the success of the students?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say, in addition to providing education, you guys have a very robust workforce development program. So making sure that we're tracking the successes of those who choose not to go to a 4-year, but instead are, becoming firefighters or EMTs or, going into the trades where they can make more than I do, or many of us, right? Working, very good union jobs that have healthcare, access to healthcare and pensions and retirement. And so being able to track and talk about those stories is another way to really highlight what we're doing at the community college system.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Patrick, do you want to add?
Yes, I'll just say definitely I agree with everyone about looking at those measurements, but I would also sort of answer it in a non-answer way, which is I want to make sure that the community colleges are there as that resource and can and should be there to track and measure success and help all of our students, but also not at the expense of our student success. I think there's been so much obsession over tracking the success and performance of things that I really feel the spirit of the community colleges system should be there just to learn, for lifelong learning. And you can't measure that. You can't quantify Dr. McKeever's experience in an exact way. You can't quantify a lot of our students' success because they're so diverse and so different than any other student population in higher education and in the world. And it should just be there as a resource and not sort of fixated on this obsession with we must we must quantify this, and we must measure this and fund it accordingly. We should just fund it for the sake of the resources being there for our students. And sometimes that's hard to quantify, and sometimes we shouldn't necessarily obsess over that too much.
Thank you very much. And that's a great segue into our next question, which we're going to ask specifically of Patrick. What do you think have been the most consequential policy reforms in the community college system in the last few decades?
That's hard. A lot of people have different opinions. I'll say our online education, I think what we've seen during COVID and even before, how it has transformed and frustrated all of us in terms of the online course offerings that we offer have been completely transformative in a lot of ways. Our Guided Pathways initiative is this genius framework for providing our students a more clear educational pathway, has been just incredible. And our dual enrollment programs with our high schools, I think we need to expand that and make high school students have that accessibility and know that that dual enrollment program is for everybody, not just the students who are wanting to quote unquote get ahead in high school. Those are the three hugely consequential and transformative initiatives I feel over the past few decades. There's more, so don't criticize me, but those are the three that I have.
We're not here. We didn't invite you here to criticize you. So are there any of our other panelists who would like to weigh in on this question? We asked it of Patrick because he's been around the Capitol the longest, but I know that James, you've been at the districts where many of those policy reforms we've had to execute. And I know that Assemblymember, you always hear from faculty because you always have time to listen to us. And then, of course, Madison, many of those reforms you're living right now. So if anybody else would like to mention or talk about any of the recent policy reforms, let me know.
I mean, I'll let others go first. But...
Go ahead, James.
Okay. Well, all right. One of them, there's some negative consequences. Well, first, let me get a positive one, the college promise. Okay. I think the college promise is a move in the right direction in guaranteeing no tuition for full-time community college students. I would love to, I know Miguel Santiago is trying to expand that now to community colleges that get four-year degrees. But I would love to see it expanded to part-time students as well, because many of our students can't go full-time, and only 10% of our community college students in our district, which is 9 campuses, are taking advantage of the college promise. But I think that's a positive step in the right direction. AB 1705 is a step in the absolute wrong direction. While some people may have thought that this is a good idea, that lower level math and English courses might have been holding people back, what they did was set up a system where students who are not good in math and English are going to struggle. Okay, and once they've failed that class 3 times, people say they can go to another district. But our students don't generally go to other districts. And if you failed that course already 3 times, what's the likelihood you're going to try a 4th time? And you don't have that, those classes available. And, as Assemblymember Ortega had mentioned, you're not even allowing lower level math courses for the CTE courses. So now they have to take college level math, which they didn't have to take before. So I think that's going to have devastating effects on our communities and our enrollments in the future.
Thank you. I think often policy is hard. It's hard to legislate nuance. And I think in trying to affect the largest system of higher ed, we end up more with sort of mandates and trying to sort of shove everybody into the same into the same pathway. And when you have such a broad mission, it's difficult to not affect another, right? You pull a lever over here and you end up affecting a lever somewhere else. And so what we've ended up with AB 1705 is removing the standalone remediation where maybe we had too many students and too lengthy a pathway to be able to get through math. And so we needed some remediation reform. And then maybe we've done an overcorrect where now we've said we don't need remediation at all, but there likely are some students who might need some standalone remediation, maybe not everybody. So how do we then, how do we sort of correct maybe that overcorrection so that we can allow students to have choice and pathways of choice where they know what they need and they can be able to place themselves accordingly without mandating that they end up in a very lengthy remedial pathway. I think that balance, right? It's always yes, and we have to do so much that sometimes we end up through policy making no choices to make it easier, but it's not necessarily, there's unintended consequences. Is there anyone else that would like to go ahead, Madison?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about more about dual enrollment and the expansion of that in high schools. I remember when I was in high school, dual enrollment was sometimes limited to higher achieving students, and so it wasn't always broadcasted to everyone, or it was just painted as a way to get ahead of college, but really it could be to explore career paths before you get into college. It's obviously, if you're already planning to go to college, you're going to be saving money by doing dual enrollment, but I just think that it needs to be advertised in a way that is really reaching students so they understand the benefits of dual enrollment, and that it's not just for people that want to go to college. It can also be for career exploration, and so you don't have to struggle with that when you get out of high school, but just painting it in a way that's really reaching to students and actually giving that information to all students so they can benefit from it. It's something that we need to work on.
Fantastic. So open to all students and not just about transfer, but about career exploration too. And that's become a goal of our community college system and our new Vision 2030 document. So hopefully you'll be seeing that. You'll already have transferred and you'll probably be in law school, but because you're moving on, but we will definitely fix that for you. Okay, unless Assemblymember Ortega, you want to join us, we'll move on to the next question, which I think is for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so in the last year's budget trailer bill, this was in 2022, the California Community College mission was stripped from transfer, basic skills, career education, and lifelong learning. So we had 4 parts to remove the basic skills remediation part. And I don't know if you were on when Kay went through that information, but we talked about it in trailer bill. It was sort of the trailer bill process, and this is for the audience, not for you, of course, Assembly member, but it's sort of a more behind the scenes, less public process. And we really found out after the fact as community college stakeholders, like, oh, our mission changed overnight and nobody knew. So what do you think about the change of removing remediation and basic skills from our mission, and how do you think it will impact our colleges and our students and our faculty?
Well, this is a perfect example of us meddling and not taking into consideration your experience and what you guys are doing on the ground. You know, and something that happens in a way that's not transparent and done in the middle of the night is not something that I support. And it's a perfect, we're gonna have to go back and look at this. Because it is going to have a detrimental impact, especially on students that come from communities and backgrounds like myself, where we don't have access to that high level of education, tutors, you know, other educational resources that would help us level that playing field. And now that's been taken away from the one place where we depend on it. And so having done this, now we're going to have to take a look and figure out a way to fix it so that it doesn't have those unintended consequences of hurting those that we want to help the most.
Thank you for that. And for clarity, there is a clause in there, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it was in Kay's PowerPoint, and we'll definitely send that out to everybody in that refers to supporting students in their learning pathways, which would include tutoring. And we are very thankful for a restoration that in legislation last year, the year before, that allows us to expand tutoring services in many areas where we were prohibited from providing tutoring. So we have actually done some really amazing work in the tutoring area through the same legislation that decided that we didn't need to have any standalone remediation, but definitely tutoring, I would agree, is a way to support students. That's incredibly important, and we need to make sure that we maintain tutoring. So thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure we clarified. In our mission, it did.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I meant more about private tutoring, right? We have schools that have a lot more access to resources, and kids who are a lot more affluent who have access to private tutors versus a lot of us who don't. And so not meaning what the community, but just in terms of access to resources that most of in our community do not have access to. So
agreed, totally agreed. Thank you so much. Does anybody else like to respond to the change in the California mission of the California community colleges?
I feel like I keep going first. I could talk about this all day, and I really appreciate this panel.
Go ahead, James.
No, I think I'm really appreciative of this question, because I think it brings up something that's really important. I think education in the past was always used as not an equalizer, but a justification for why people had positions of privilege. So when we first started here in the United States, we did not have public education for everyone. It was private education only for the wealthy. And then later it was public education for only white people. And this justified why these groups were, higher income and in positions of power before. And now what it seems like is once education became available to everyone, the California education used to be free, but once it became available to Black and brown students, then, oh no, we're going to start charging tuition. Well, this too, if you take away basic remediation, you're taking away the ability for some people, as Assemblymember Ortega said, who do not have access to, expensive tutors and Kumon and those type of things, of access to actually trying to catch up so they can be college ready and move ahead, or promote in jobs, or just enhance their lives and so on. And we have to fight this, because the point of the community college should also be to enhance the lives of low-income communities, impoverished communities. All right. And by doing away with basic remediation, we're really limiting that and that opportunity for low-income folks.
Madison, what do you hear from your peers? Because this was a big movement, initially AB 705, which didn't remove remediation. It was an earlier bill in 2017, I think, but it allowed us to get rid of a lot of those lengthy remedial pathways, and asked us to have really a 1-year path to be able to get students through transfer level. But what do you hear from your peers? Because students were really behind, saying, I don't want to take 5 levels of math to be able to get through school. I need it to be faster. What do you think, and what do you hear from your peers about remediation in math and English, and where the balance sort of lies?
I think it's important for it's very time consuming taking all these extra math courses when you're trying to transfer these extra English courses, but sometimes it's necessary to get to the place where you want to be. So I think just trying to find the balance between like what's necessary and what is too much and too time consuming has been one of the biggest conversations going on, because you want to be set up for success so you don't fail. Especially, if you're not a STEM major, sometimes it's not as important. People think it's like not necessary, but you learn some important skills that will help you on for your upper division coursework and when you go on to transfer. So really finding the balance between what is too much and what is necessary has been one of the biggest conversations going on.
There's been on the state level, one of the reasons we ended up with AB 1705 and removing remediation completely, a standalone remediation. There was this notion that the districts were sort of forcing students into remedial classes, and that students didn't have the ability to choose the classes that they thought were best for them. Do you think most of you and your peers have the ability to understand and know and to choose the classes that you think would be best for you and your goals?
No, because some of them seem unnecessary to people. Like I could see the benefit, but some people that are, like I said, not going into like STEM, why do I need to take this course? They think it's a waste of time. And I get it. You could be spending your time elsewhere on more major pertinent courses. And so I would say no. Like for me, like I said, chemistry, that's very important. I need to take these courses. But other people, it doesn't seem necessary. It seems like I'm spending more time and more money on classes that I don't need. It seems like there's a lack of freedom of choice.
Interesting. Okay, so something we have to work on. This is something for a future policy forum, I think, is how do we find this balance between, you know, what the faculty or people who sort of are in a career field think that you need to know, and then sort of what you feel you need to know for your goals, right? What is where is that gap, and how do we manage that? Fascinating. Thank you. And I want to ask Patrick, as a board president at a college, what are you hearing at your college?
Frustration. I think we're operating in our silos way too much when it comes to policy making and working together, and it needs to be more than just let's go to our one day a year visits to the legislature to talk about our stories. I think we need to be engaging more with the legislature to talk about these unintended consequences of these well-meaning and well-intentioned goals, but they're just not being played out the way I think some of the original intent of this legislation has originally produced. And ultimately, it comes down to fully funding the community colleges and fully funding these programs. This would work if we had ample resources to provide the tutoring that many people don't have access to provide more categorical funding programs, to provide sort of a better infrastructure for folks, instead of just doing away with it and saying, okay, you're going to be placed in this, you're going to struggle, and you're not going to have access to private resources, you're not going to have access to all these other benefits that other students have. If we had designed the system in a way of, okay, we're implementing this, but we're giving you all of these resources for programmatic reforms and extra tutoring and extra faculty and more learning community programs to have extra tutoring in your learning community, you know, we're scratching the surface on that. So, you know, again, reform I think was well intentioned, but without the resources, without understanding the detrimental effects of sort of unfunded mandates, we're leading, you know, back to a, you know, what will be a 5 to 15 year fight about trying to convince people about, you know, what is the problems with this and how can we move to change it. And I'm really fortunate that Assemblymember Ortega is there because she understands it. She's been a champion for not only our students, but for labor and working families, that we don't have to convince her. We have to convince the rest of her colleagues, but you know, it's about electing people who get it, and I know that Assemblymember Ortega has just been such a champion for us on these issues, so I'm really appreciative of that. But I think it just has to come down to the funding ultimately.
Yeah, there's so many things you said there that were so important. First of all, faculty and students need to go meet with their representatives directly, because we do have a lot of very well-funded special interest groups who chew on their ear and their staffers' ears all the time. So you need to develop those relationships with your elected representatives and let them know you're a resource, both as a student and a faculty member, for them, for what's happening on the ground and what you need, right, to be able to make the students as successful as possible for their goals. But the last time I ran into Assemblymember Ortega in person, we had a quick chat. I don't know if she remembers it, but I remember it. She's like, please send me more people like me so I can do the things that you need. So it's right. It's not just about meeting with people who are elected, but making sure you can help get the people elected that understand what the California community colleges need and the citizens of California, to make sure that we can restore, I think, really the California community colleges to what they were, which is free education at multiple levels for multiple goals for multiple students quite some time ago. And since Prop 13, we really have been significantly underfunded. And Prop 13, for anybody who doesn't know, was back in 1978, I think. So that's most of my lifetime. James, your hand went up really quick and then back down. Do you want to add one more thing to this, or?
No, I could just, well, I was just going to say that in the chat, there's an article from Inside Higher Ed that just came out on January 17th called In Defense of Remedial Math. I think it's a really good article for us to read that gives that counter to that argument of the AB 1705.
Thank you so much. So I haven't been watching the chat, but we probably have some things that will be dropping in the chat or have been dropping in the chat, and make sure you guys download those so you have access to them. Okay, I think I'm on question 6, and this one is for James. There has been a significant emphasis on the 2-year transfer pathway within the community colleges. How do you think this has impacted our diverse body of students, and are there any unintended consequences?
Well, absolutely. There are a lot of unintended consequences. And I heard the end of the previous panel, and I do agree. We're not against transfer. We're not against trying to help students get out as quick as possible. But there's some pushing everyone into this cookie cutter mold of transfer without really understanding what our students go through is a problem, right? It doesn't take into account some of the added pressures that many of our students have, right? And responsibilities that our students have. Many of our students are low income. Many of our students work not to pay for most of their college, or if not all of their college themselves, but they also help to pay rents and mortgages in their families, right? They take care of their siblings and have to pick them up sometimes and take them to the doctor and so on because their parents are working, and for those reasons, and some of them even have children, and for those reasons, trying to tell them, hey, you need to get out in 2 years and you need to take this full load makes it very difficult. I was ashamed to tell people it took me 9 years to get through community college. The only reason I started changing it was because I knew my students were ashamed of taking longer than 2 years to get through community colleges. So it also gives them this added pressure to graduate quickly, but that doesn't mean they're going to graduate well, right? So now all of a sudden, a student who maybe took a little longer could have been at UCLA, okay, and had greater opportunities because of going there. Nothing wrong with CSUs, Cal State LA, Golden Eagles for life, okay, and so on. But at the same time, UCs do give you broader opportunities, okay? They are, and so on. They have a broader reach, right? So they might not graduate well. It also could increase their feelings of failure. Many of our students, I always say, are one good excuse from never coming back again, right? And if I push them into a full load, and that's what I was always trying to take was a full load, but I had so many withdrawals on my transcripts that I joke with my students, you could have called me James W. McKeever, that W standing for withdrawal, right? And so on, because I would have to quit because I would have to get a second job sometimes, all right? Or I'd have to work too much overtime and then I wouldn't have enough time for my courses and so on, right? So it increases those feelings of failure, for students too. And then all of a sudden they may go away because they really feel like college isn't for me, all right? And then those two things combined, that added pressure to graduate quickly, those increasing feelings of failure, right? That could end students' academic and career dreams right there in the moment, and I'm not for that. Okay, it's great. Now that my kids are middle class, my first 2 kids, grew up poor, right? And they paid for their own college and everything else and so on. One's a CSUN now, the other one graduated from CSUN earlier. My last kids, all solidly middle class. 2 of them went on to liberal arts colleges where people are telling you, explore, figure out what you want to do and so on. Find your passions, right? In classes of 6 people. I want that for my students, okay? I want my students to be able to find their passions, right? So it doesn't allow them this ability to explore. I was a history major. Here's the thing they also don't understand about low-income families, right? And I'm a sociologist, so we study this, right? One of the things it points out is low-income kids, young people, they look for jobs that are familiar to them, jobs they see in their communities, school teacher, police officer, postman, things like that, social worker, things like that, right? I want to be a history teacher. Did I really want to be a history teacher? That's what I was exposed to. It was only when I was exposed to a sociology professor taking a GE course that I had to take that I realized sociology was my passion, right? And I love sociology, right? I want that for our students, right? This could rush them into negative career choices, okay? I love my job, but I've worked plenty of jobs I hated. And if I still had to work those jobs, as I tell my students, you're forcing people to hate 50% of their waking hours, Monday through Friday, 50% of their life, Monday through Friday for the rest of their lives. I don't want that for my community. I don't want that for my students. It also devalues education and reinforces credentialism again. Why can't a student take a few extra psychology courses if psychology is an interest to them? And yes, they will have more than 60 units, but sometimes putting that one extra course that you really like, that you look forward to in the day, keeps you going to the other courses too. And I think we have to remember that it's not just about this slim transfer portal, but it's also about this idea of how do we get them through at their pace in the way that works for them? And this doesn't always do that.
Wow. I'm so glad we have this on recording. Thank you. Powerful, powerful. And I saw Assemblymember's hand go up. So I think she has something, you inspired her for a response.
No, actually, I wish. I mean, you did, but unfortunately, I have to run. I just wanted to thank you all for having me, and Dr. McKeever. It took me 10 years to get my bachelor's degree, as well as a single mother. And again, not having the community college system would not have allowed me to do any of the work that I do today. So I'm extremely forever grateful to all of you, and consider me again, one of your champions, and will continue to push for legislation and budgets that reflect our mission to higher education for all. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming, Assemblymember. We appreciate your time and all your hard work for our students. Patrick or Madison, would you like to respond to James?
Yeah. Sorry, do you want to go first?
Please, Madison, go.
Okay. Yeah, that was really powerful, and it really resonated with me because I'm a third year student, and there's like some type of guilt and shame that I feel for being a third year student. I think it's impossible for any type of hard STEM major to get out into. I think it's impossible unless you have AP classes, but that's a discussion for another day. But I really liked, or it really resonated with me, how you said that we're not giving students the opportunity to actually explore, and there's just this focus on getting them, I guess, in and out within this 2-year time period, and then not being able to take other classes because you don't want to take too many units. You need to fit in the classes that you need, so you don't get to take these other classes, and just the guilt and shame associated with staying longer than 2 years. And I was like, I've known people that have trying to rush through their program and not like actually hate the things that they're doing, like by the time that they're supposed to transfer, because they never got the opportunity to explore anything else. Maybe they really like that philosophy class, but I don't have time to take other philosophy classes because I have 6 million other courses to take. And that was just really powerful because I felt that before. And even in my career, I remember I took an English class. I really love English, but I have not been able to take an English class since my first semester, and that's really disheartening to me because I love English and I want to expand on those skills, but I simply don't have the time, or I'd be at community college for 4 years, but I want to take an English class. So that was just really, really powerful with me, and I really resonate with that.
Thank you so much, Madison. Patrick?
Thank you. This makes me want to take more lifelong learning classes with Dr. McKeever because I feel like I can listen to his lectures all day. I think that there comes a point during the semester or quarter, I've certainly seen it over the years in our students, where they are taking on so many units, they're working 2 jobs, they cut the classes that they were initially so excited about because they can't do it, and you see the light leave from their eyes, and they start out so excited, and the pressures of trying to make it through and navigate our system become too much, with trying to afford to live or I think that we've got to take another look at our funding formula that is just, people like to tout it as equitable, and it's not. We've got to take a look at how we're funding our schools, how we're funding our programs ultimately. And I just don't think that that is living up to the higher education master plan of California. We're not living up to a free and accessible community college system, because we're continuing to chip away at these, and this obsession with enrollment, especially at certainly my community college and others that are not basic aid. It transforms the way that we have to fixate on early cancellation of classes because it's not making enough, and it transforms the way that, and the pressure is put upon our faculty and ultimately on our students. And I just think that we need to really take a look at, as a legislature, a stronger, whether it be a select committee or just we need to get the elected officials and the policy advocates back in the room to reevaluate our promise to Californians. And that needs to be serious policy conversations, not in the rush of the larger budget, not in these advocacy spots only. It needs to be a very serious conversation about what is the future going to look like for this. What does the community college system mean to you? Well, if it means all of these things and everyone agrees that it means accessibility and affordability and transfer and workforce, then our budget has to reflect that, because it's a statement of our values. And people are so rushed to these specific fixes and policies or policy introductions that I really feel like we're not really looking at this holistically in a way. So I'd like to see us convene a select committee to reevaluate the entire framework of what we're doing.
Well, I'm going to segue into our final question, and we have a couple minutes left. And I'm going to start with Patrick, because you were right on a roll there. But what are ways that we can bring community back to the community colleges?
Well, I think that it's gotta taking a look at how the community colleges have transformed over the years, and I think that next step of bringing community back is frankly looking at how we are serving our students, how we have traditionally served our students, and where they're going now, and that to me means bringing community back means providing housing ultimately for our students, faculty, and staff. We cannot keep ignoring the fact that our part-timers are living paycheck to paycheck. Our full-timers are living paycheck to paycheck. Our students are homeless. Many of our faculty and staff members are homeless. When we talk about committee, we can't even talk about community, I feel, if we're not talking about basic needs. And so when people's basic needs are met, then we can start talking about a holistic community approach. But we need to be building housing on our community college property, or we need to be building housing right off campus. Whatever it takes to be able to retain and recruit excellent faculty, students, staff, administrators. I hear it all the time on the board. But I, as someone who was formerly homeless, I have that lived experience, and I think we also need to have a serious conversation about not waiting around for our cities or our counties to finally solve homelessness and housing. We've got to do it ourselves. We have, like you said, Wendy, we have 115 community colleges in the state of California. Some of them have housing, but we need to change hearts and minds about we are not just a junior college commuting campuses anymore. People don't just all live at home in their stable housing and go to our schools. And so if we all can acknowledge that, then what is it that we're doing? And it's scary, it's burdensome. We are just trying to get by all the reforms that are happening in Sacramento and not having enough money. I get it. But if our student basic needs are not met, if our faculty and staff basic needs are not met, we can't possibly move forward with putting community back in community college.
Wow, very powerful. I'm so glad we have this recorded. I'm just going to play you back for every one of my legislative visits and say, here you go, this is what we need to do. Thank you, Madison. How can we bring community back to community college?
Well, I kind of want to piggyback off what Patrick was saying about housing and basic needs and things like that. Yes, some community colleges do provide them, but are they affordable and accessible? I know at OCC, our Orange Coast College, yes, we have housing, but it is so expensive. Like it's just like not affordable and accessible to all the student populations. So just recognizing that we all come from different backgrounds. I mean, that is the beauty of community colleges, that we serve a very diverse group of people. So just recognizing that we all come from different places, different levels of income, and trying to make these basic needs resources actually accessible, and that maybe we have them, but people aren't able to afford them or gain access to them, they're not attainable. And then I think also piggybacking off what James said earlier about the transformative experience of community college and how it affects communities. So just knowing that if you go to college, it affects your children, and you're from low class, you can go to middle class, or you can go and take these yoga classes to reduce stress and things like that. It's transforming the community, and when we can remind people of that, I think we can bring back community in community colleges.
Thank you so much, Madison. Much appreciate your comments. Okay, James,
Well,
how can
thank
we bring
you.
community back to community college?
Well, I agree with everything everybody said. Absolutely, 100% spot on, in my opinion. We need to be of service to our community. That's the thing, is we need to remind our community that we're there for them. So my vision is that in our district, that each one of our community colleges become a community hub, right? Where people can go not just to take classes, but for services, for support, for public events, and lectures, for cultural fairs, and then they stay for classes, and so on. That they start to see the community college almost like a small town sees a college town sees the college there, and everything kind of circles around that. I would like to see that for our community colleges. We must reach out to our communities that we do serve, and then they're going to reach back to us, because we're protecting the education for our students and for our communities. That's what we're really about. Most faculty that I know, the large majority of faculty I know, love their students and they love the communities that they serve, right? And what we want to do is protect that, but we can't do that without the community. So if we reach out to the community and bring them into the community college, when the time comes and we need them, they'll be there for us, whether it's letter writing, to the governor or to a senator or whoever it is, or showing up at a board of trustees meeting, whatever it is, right? And we have to remember that we're not just there for transfer and certificates. We have to protect that idea that we're there for lifelong learning and to enhance a skill and those remedial issues too. And I think that's how we bring the community back to community colleges, make them really understand this is your community college and we're there for you.
Thank you so much. So we need more collaboration, more advocacy. We need to make sure we're there for the community and they're there for us. Definitely. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your time. Amazing topics that we were able to cover today and your feedback. And I am so glad this is on recording, and I hope our audience shares widely, because we have work to do, guys, to restore our community colleges and make sure we have the funding that we need and the policy we need for our students, to make sure our students and our communities are successful. And we are here for the public good. We're not just here to produce credentials for the workforce. We have a lot more than that on our plate. So I appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to hand it back over to Kay, our policy chair. And thank you to all of our panelists. If you guys want to send a round of claps out from the audience, that would be fabulous. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. A huge thank you to our esteemed panel. We are so grateful you took your time out of your schedules to be with us.
Thank you, everybody.